The elections for the next AUC chairperson are drawing closer and closer as days go by. And we are seeing the two main contenders, that is Raila Odinga, the former Prime Minister of Kenya, and the Foreign Minister of Djibouti, Mohhamed Youssef, intensifying their campaigns across the continent to get those needed votes for them to clinch the seat to become the next AUC chairperson. Just on Tuesday, we saw Raila Odinga in Addis Ababa celebrating the opening of the renovated African Hall, where he met dignitaries, for example, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and he also met Benin's ambassador to Ethiopia to speak about the critical vote from the West African region. But before we talk about all this, in this session, I want us to discuss about the countries that are not going to vote in the AUC elections. We've been talking about countries that have supported Raila Odinga. We've been talking about countries that might not support Raila Odinga. We've been talking about the crucial vote of Morocco and Algeria, but we've not spoken about countries that will not be voting in the next AUC elections. And the reason that these countries will not be voting circulates around governance and also the fact that these nations might not have legitimate governments in place. So the AU Act, Article 30, stipulates that government which shall come to power through unconstitutional means shall not be allowed to participate in the activities of the Union. That means that any government that has undergone a coup or any government that is not stable will not be able to participate in the activities of the African Union. And these activities also include voting for the next AUC chairperson on February of 2025. So there are 6 countries that are listed that will not be able to participate in the coming elections in 2025. And before I mention these countries, this is not to mean that these countries will not be influential in deciding who will win this particular seat, because a country has influence in its neighbors. A country will have influence in whoever is chosen to be the next AUC chairperson, even if this country will not be voting. So the first in line is Sudan. And the reason as to why Sudan is there, we know that Sudan is currently in a civil war. There are 2 generals that are fighting against each other. We know that on one side we have the Sudanese army, and on the other side we have the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF. So Sudan right now does not have any accepted government. These 2 generals are still fighting, and there was a transitional president who was removed by these 2 generals because they were under him. And right now they have armies on both sides, and they are fighting for the control of the entire nation. So right now, Sudan cannot take a vote. Sudan is not eligible to take a vote in any AU activity. So that is why Sudan will not be taking part in the next AUC chairperson. The next country that will also not be allowed to participate in the AU activity and thus will not vote on February is Gabon. Gabon will not be participating. Gabon is in Central Africa. And we know what happened in Gabon last year when there was a bloodless, as we can call it, coup, where a military leader took over the reins of power from President Ali Bongo. I know you all remember that clip where Ali Bongo was saying, make noise, telling everyone in the world to try and defend him to take over power.
And I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise, For the people here have arrested me. I don't know what's going on. So I'm calling you to make noise, really.
So that coup that happened in Gabon is the one that is making Gabon not participate in the elections of the AUC chairperson come next year. According to the AU, that is not a legitimate government, and that government needs to hold elections so that a legitimate government can be elected in Gabon. So Gabon, the president currently is Oligui Nguema, and that president will not cast his ballot come 2025 February of who will be the next AUC chairperson. Well, the next country that will not also be allowed to vote is Benin. And when we are talking about Benin, there is no coup that we're going to discuss in Benin. There is no military takeover. There is nothing. The only reason why Benin will not be allowed to vote in the next AUC chairpersonship is because the African Union has noted that there is a backsliding in democracy in the country of Benin. Opposition leaders are being arrested. People are being stripped of their voting rights, and a lot of atrocities are going on in Benin that have led the African Union to make the decision to remove Benin from all activities that the African Union is doing. That is just to increase the pressure of Benin to abide by the rule of law, to support democracy so that people can have their voices. So that is the reason as to why Benin will not be taking a vote in the next AUC chairpersonship. That is because Benin has been noted to backslide in terms of its democracy. And you remember, as I said earlier, Raila Odinga met with the ambassador of Benin to Ethiopia when he was in Addis Ababa, and he possibly could have spoken about the chances of Benin returning to African Union, because Benin's reasons of not being allowed to participate in African Union activities are reasons that can be well amended, and Benin can be returned to full participation in the African Union. So that might be the reason as to why Raila Odinga had to meet with Benin ambassador to Ethiopia. And perhaps Raila Odinga will have the favor of Benin that can influence the neighbors around, so that Raila Odinga can get even more votes when he goes for the election in 2025 February. Well, this next country is one that is known by many, and that is Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso will not be taking a vote. Ibrahim Traore will not be taking a vote come next year, February 2025, on who will be the next AUC chairperson, either Raila Odinga or Mohhamed Youssef. And that is because of the coups that have been happening in Burkina Faso. There have been coups and counter-coups, coups and counter-coups. As you know, Ibrahim Traore took over the reins of power from another military leader who had also taken the country through a coup. So those behaviors of coups and counter-coups, and by the way, Ibrahim Traore till today is still facing threats of another coup happening in Burkina Faso. So those are the reasons as to why Burkina Faso will not be taking its vote in the next AUC chairpersonship, and that is because of Article 30 of the AUC Act that says that governments have to be legitimate governments in place so that a government can be allowed to take or participate in the AUC activities. Niger is also a similar case to Burkina Faso of coups, and this is because President Mohhamed Bazoum was ousted from power. And by the way, President Mohhamed Bazoum is still in custody. The people who took over power in Niger made sure that they imprisoned the President Mohhamed Bazoum, and ECOWAS has been making appeals to Niger to allow the president to be free and then put in an interim government that will now oversee the elections in Niger. But that has not been to fruition because the former president, that is Mohhamed Bazoum, is still in custody, and the country is led by a junta. So that means that Niger, just like Burkina Faso, will not be allowed to participate in AU activities come next year, February 2025. The last country, and this is the sixth country, that will also not participate is Guinea. A similar case to Burkina Faso and Niger, Guinea also underwent a coup, and that is the reason as to why Guinea will not be participating in the elections of the next AUC chairperson in 2025. So these are the countries that will not be participating in the AUC elections in 2025. And I repeat, it does not mean that the contestants should not have discussions with these people. If anything, these contestants should be encouraged to go and have conversations with the leadership of these countries, so that they can now foster these countries to go back to democracy. That will be their hardest task. Anyone who will be elected as the next AUC chairperson will have to face these countries. They will have to face the crisis that happens to countries like this, because other countries can also go this route. Many countries have threatened to have coups. We've seen other countries thwarting coups. So this is a major problem in Africa that the next AUC chairperson will have to address, that countries are deviating from democracy to dictatorship or to coups. So this is part of the work that either Raila Odinga or the Djiboutian Foreign Secretary, that is Mohhamed Ali Youssef, will have to deal with when or if they get elected as the next AUC chairperson come February 2025.